Good morning, everybody. June 1st, if you can believe that, about 8:30 in the morning. Blocking day. Not to be confused with Boxing Day, like they have in England, but it's blocking day. So not very exciting today, so there probably won't be a whole lot of footage, but I'll get the inside of the bonnet here blocked out and see if I was successful in filling those little lows. If not, I'm gonna accept it probably and move on unless it's really bad. And then I'll move on to the body and see how that goes. I've got several sanding blocks here. Kind of big, but that's okay. 3 different grits of sandpaper. I'm going to start with 150 grit, move to 220 grit, and then finally I'm going to finish with 320 grit. Now this is not going to be my ultimate finishing grit prior to paint, but that's as far as I'm going to take the stuff today. And then I have a short block here that's also flexible, and that's got 150 grit on it. And that's just to get spots that I have trouble getting to, and then I'll see how this kind of goes. So like, there's going to be spots where this block is going to be even too big. So I'll use, when you're blocking build primer, what you don't want to do specifically is move in the same direction. So you don't want to go just back and forth like this, because what happens is on the edge of the paper, it will tend to cut into the primer more than the center of the paper, and you'll get these little valleys, especially when the panel is not flat like this one is. If you guys, I have mentioned the gentleman before. There's a guy out there. It's called Trev. He's got Trev's blog. I'll put a link in the description. Just put out a video on how to block build primer. Outstanding video. All his videos are great. But he showed the process on how to block it out, and he made that point. So he's probably a better guy to watch than me for how to do this stuff. So I'll put a reference to his video. Now again, with the inside of the bonnet here, I'm not particularly concerned about it being very flat. That's going to be for the outside when I flip this thing over, and I'll show you how I do that, either on the body or on the bonnet if I get it flipped today. All right, well, it's about noon, and I blocked it all out to 320, and it feels like the sand dunes of a beach. So hopefully when I flip this over and block out, the filler that I've done will be better. Well, it is 3:30, and I got no other work done than in my last update little snippet. However, the garage has been cleaned up and rearranged. The garage mate came over today. We cleaned everything up, moved everything out, got the Z out. Motorcycle's back up over here. I've moved my tool chest over here. It allows me a little bit better access than when it was over here and I had to walk between the tarp and the wall. Put a shelving unit back there, then the press, then my rack with all the stuff. This blasting cabinet. Moved the drill press, which used to be behind the bathroom door here, over here. Got a little spot for the vacuum now. So anyway, even though I didn't get really anything done today, I got a lot done with preparation work. A good day to get some stuff cleaned up and trash out of here and stuff like that. It's really the first time since we've had the garage that we've done that. So it's been a couple years. That's going to be it for today. Just a quick update. Obviously not a lot of work. Welcome back, everybody. About 4:15 or so on, let's see, Wednesday the 5th of June. Back over here to actually do blocking day this time. So I'm going to start with the bonnet. Block that thing out. I'll go through on how I'm going to do that, similar to the way I blocked the doors and other stuff, but it's been a little while, so I'll show you that. Obviously the outside of the bonnet here, well, before I flipped it over, I did do this part here just to see how it's lining up, and you can see there's some high spots, especially right around the bonnet catch there, but I don't think there's nothing to bare metal down there except for that spot right there, so that's good. So what I'm going to use now is I'm going to use a guide coat. Now I do have some dry guide coat over there, but I bought some cheapo spray paint at Walmart's, and I've showed you this before. This is a Color Place spray paint. I think it's a whopping 99 cents a can. I wouldn't paint anything with this for reals, but it is also flat black. The gloss will tend to clog up your paper, but at 99 cents it makes for a good guide coat. So I intend to use that, and I'm going to just spray it, not heavily, right? I don't want to cover the whole thing. I'm not trying to paint the car here. The purpose of the guide coat is to help me figure out when I've got highs and lows. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll show you where I'm going to spray it here real quick, and it's not going to be all that heavy, like I said.
All right, so there's the guide coat, and you can see how it's blackened up. Now, they do make purpose-built guide coat out of a spray can. I think it's like 20 bucks. It's not cheap at all, but it sprays nicer. If you go to Trev's blog, like I had given you a link to earlier, he uses a more professional, I guess you could say, guide coat. I just don't really see the point. But anyway, now you can see that this stuff is all on there. So now the point, and I'm going to start with 150 here. The point of the guide coat is to let you know where your highs or lows are. So if you go and start blocking and the black paint goes away right away, then you know that you're in a relatively high spot and you're okay. And if it stays and hangs around, then you know that that's a low spot. So I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen down here since I have the epoxy primer that's underneath, which is just a slightly lighter shade of gray than the build primer. So I almost kind of have a built-in guide coat here. But I haven't done the rest of the bonnet, so I'm going to get ahead and do that. So again, blocking, you don't want to go in one motion direction. You want to go at a cross angle so that you don't cut into the primer at all. And again, the build primer is there to try to flatten this out. And I'll go to town here and see what I can. All right, so you can see here a pretty good dark spot, here a pretty good dark spot, here a pretty big dark spot, unfortunately. Good one down here, here, right? There's dark spots all over the place. So what that tells me is I got a bunch of lows. Now this one I can feel, and it's rough. So the sandpaper is not even touching it. This one about the same way. This one's pretty bad. I remember filling all this stuff. So now I have a choice. You know, do you leave it, or do you fix it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue and I'm going to block out this whole wing from the seam up here down. I'll do that off camera so as not to bore you, and I'll make an assessment at that point. All right, so I've been continuing to block. Show you a couple blocks that I haven't really used up until now. This is a flat block. It's 9 inches long, but it's obviously thin, or not as wide, I should say. So I'm using the short end of it and the long end of it, and that's helping me get into the more tight spots. And I'm also using the round block here. Again, that's 9 inches. And you can see I've only got just a little bit of a strip of paper on there. That's a tip that I picked up from Tom at Garage Time. He's restoring doing a resto mod on a 911. That guy can get some straight panels. But his recommendation was not to put paper all over the roll, and that provides some flexibility in this thing. You can see it will flex a little bit for you. And he was finding that if you put paper everywhere, you lose that flexibility. So that was a good tip. This mark over here that I had pointed out, which I just pointed to off camera. Anyway, this mark over here that I had pointed out earlier, you can see that it's still kind of dark, but I can't feel the roughness now. Again, I haven't done this before, so this is, again, my experience that I'm developing right as we speak on how I'm doing it. You can really start to see now where you're getting the lighter spots in here from the epoxy primer, and the darker spots all the way down to almost dark from the guide coat. That's all build primer. The build primer, like the Southern Polyurethane guys told me on the phone, is designed to be on the floor, except for the spots that you absolutely need it. So I'm not having any qualms about going down to epoxy primer and seeing just speckles of that dark gray. So essentially what I think my ultimate goal would be is to make the colors on the panel that you see right now almost invert and have a lot of the light areas of the epoxy and just little spots of the dark areas of the build primer. Now I don't think I'm going to be that lucky, but this is starting to come out as I work it. And I'm doing 150 grit right now, so I'm still on the relatively rough stuff. So I'm going to continue to block out using all my different blocks here with 150 grit and try to get this wing done and see where it sits. Now what I don't want to do, or at least try to minimize, however, is going down to bare metal. You want to try to prevent going down to bare metal. The idea here is I've got a perfectly straight panel, I block it out, I get it even straighter, I can do a sealing coat of epoxy primer and go straight to paint. So I'm probably not going to be able to get that lucky with this. This may have to take another shot of build primer, but we'll see. So I'm going to continue blocking here, continue working and see if I can get these spots out, or at least really close to it. I got some good lows on here that I've got to deal with, but this is coming out a little bit better than I initially thought it was when I was on camera just a second ago. Another point I'll bring up here, and Trev brought it up as well, is the object is not to remove all of your guide coat. I'll say that again, the object here is not to remove all of the guide coat, because if you just sit and concentrate on an area and go to town on it until you get all that black out of there, you'll get rid of all that guide coat and you're going to develop a low spot. So you still want to cover the entire panel in a nice even manner as you work and block it out. And the guide coat that's left when you're done, that's indicative of your low spots. Again, the guide coat is not there to help you fill those in. And it doesn't mean when you get rid of all the black that you got a perfectly flat panel. So don't fall into that trap of just concentrating on where the black is and sanding it away and thinking that you're good when you're done, because that's not how it works. So this wing is all blocked with 150, or I should say 150 grit. Not horrible. Couple good low spots in here, couple good low spots in here. And you can see I got a high spot. There's several high spots around, but nothing that's too terrible. I took a hammer to this real quick and kind of knocked this out, and that came up okay. This portion in here, this is a pretty good low. I can feel that with just my thumb, but unfortunately the bracket, the support bracket is behind there, so I really can't get in there with a hammer. Same thing up here, the support bracket is behind this, so I can't really get into that with a hammer. So if I want to take care of these two, I'm going to have to put filler in there. I'm just not probably going to do that unless I've got a bunch of other filler that I'm going to end up having to put in. So those are potential spots. But this came up all right. You can see that's kind of low, but it came up okay. So not too shabby. There's a little bit of the issues in here, but again, nothing horrible. So that's 150 grit. I'm going to continue on and do the rest of the bonnet with 150 grit after I get a bite to eat here. It's 5:20, so that was about an hour of work just to do that with one stage of the sandpaper. After the 150, I got 220, 320, 400, and then 600 wet. So you can see how much time this takes. I haven't decided whether or not to use my 3M orbital sander for the higher grades yet, like the 400, and then do 600 wet by hand. I haven't made that decision. I know Trev uses the orbital sander for his 320, but I don't have that skill, so I'm not sure that I want to chance it. Probably saw me banging with the hammer in here to try to get these low spots up. Not too bad. Still got a rough spot here, and you can see there's still some dark spots. They're not horrible. So I'm going to just shift over to the other side and continue on. But everything is feeling pretty good for me. A couple metals shining through here, but not too bad considering how bad this was. Now there's a couple good low spots right in here. And what this is where the bracket is for the cross member. That's where the 2 studs were shot and the little brackets under there. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's how it came from the factory. And I'm going to leave that because I don't think somebody would have dented it that way, maybe. But so I'll move over to the other side, block that out, and see how it comes up. All these little nooks and crannies and all this kind of stuff that's in here, and it's you can't really block any of that around the nose here itself. All I'm going to do with that is get what sandpaper I can in there by hand. If I can use that real soft block, I'll do that. That's what I used in here. And otherwise, I'm just going to do palm sanding. And then in the absence of that, just a red scuff pad to get that as smooth as I can and get some scratches out of there. But I'm not going to try to be too aggressive in there because I don't want to introduce scratches that I can't get out. About 7:15, the entire bonnet is blocked out in 150. In these nooks and crannies up in here around the lights and all that, and then around the grill support, I used 180 grit sandpaper. The stuff that I, not to show you my trash can here, sorry, where is it? There it is. This is the stuff that's got like a non-paper back. It's a synthetic back, and it's very easy to manipulate and everything like that. So I got little squares of that to get in there and then hit the rest of it with the red scuff pad. So now that's probably going to be about it as far as footage goes for the evening. I'm just going to continue on 220 next, and probably won't get to 320. The more I think about it, I think the more I'm going to try to take this palm sander with 400 grit. Let me show you that thing real quick. So this is a 3M palm sander. It's got a pretty short 3/16 inch orbit. So in other words, it doesn't move outside of the boundary very much. Inside the circle, you can kind of see how small it is. The smaller it is, the easier it is to control and the less chance of you making a mistake, is what I understand. Now right now, this has got a pressure sensitive pad on it, but I'm going to buy another pad that's going to give me a lot more sponginess and flexibility. You can see the corner bending there, but I can get more pads for that. And then get an interface pad. It's like a thick foam Velcro, and then get Velcro sanding discs for it, and then use that to try to help me take care of the more monotonous blocking. I think maybe with the exception of some of the tight edges and everything like that, I think this will help out the more that I do it. This thing's pretty nice. I've used it one other time that I used it on camera. I picked this up on Amazon, their warehouse deals. I think it lists for like $2 something, and Amazon normally sells it for like $180 something, and I picked it up for under $80. So I got lucky with that one, and that's why I kind of bought it essentially without really even thinking about it. Definitely impulse buy, but hopefully it'll serve me well and will help me out maybe when I'm in my base coat, clear coat stage. Anyway, like I said, that's probably about it on the camera stuff tonight. I'll do a final close up. All right, everybody, that's all I got for this episode. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. A lot of blocking yet to do on that bonnet, but it's coming along. I'll decide on Sunday. I think I'll be over here. I'll decide whether or not it needs another round of epoxy primer or not. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you this weekend. Cheers.